hey everybody. I am Charlie's mum, for those that don't know me, and I have a really special guest that I would like to introduce you to today. Pam and I met actually through my husband. He found her on a AML support group and connected quite well, and then connected us, and between the four of us, we all had late night conversations to help us get through what we needed when we were all in Melbourne. Pam's son Callum was 100 days ahead of Charlie in his transplant, so she was in the know of all the things that were going to help us, even down to getting a pillow topper sheet to go on our bed in hospital, taking your own blankets, all these sort of things that you would never think of yourself. So, yes, so I'd like to introduce you to my very special friend, Pam.
Hi. It's so lovely being here, actually. It's nice. It's, I was saying to Brad, it's like, oh, yeah, I'm catching up with Kelly. And then it's like, oh, but we're talking about everything that's happened. And it's, really bittersweet, but it's so lovely seeing you.
I know. It's so exciting because it's been a while since we've talked, but not exciting because of what we're going to talk about today. I know, like I am, you're very open about talking about everything and excuse me, creating that awareness and helping support other families. So it's amazing to have you on board with this today. Thank you.
Well, the Move Challenge month's a big month for you guys, so it's it was fantastic. That it's good that it's away from all like the Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, that you're actually doing it at different times of the year, because it's important all year round. It's not just one particular point and stuff. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So, Pam, can you tell us a little bit about Callum?
Oh goodness, a little bit. How do I condense it? Callum was amazing. You knew the minute that you were in the room with him that Callum was in your presence. Somehow he was there. You just knew him. Everybody knew him. Everybody knew who Callum was, and he was an amazing kid. Like we all think our kids are special. I think that goes without saying, but Callum he was a little firecracker. He was amazing. And it's interesting, actually, like before you asked me to do this, something that's I've been thinking about him a lot. Well, probably no more than normal, but it evolves and changes how you remember your kids and stuff. And one thing that's really sticking out for me at the moment is actually how sensitive he was. And not a lot of people saw that side of him. They saw this kid that would walk into the room and just, he was there. But then he also had a really sensitive side that not many people saw. And he was just fun. He was feisty. He was rambunctious. He was naughty. He was amazing. He was just lots and lots of fun. And he did have a really cheeky side to him as well. But yeah, he was just...
a lot of trouble if the boys had got together, wouldn't we?
Oh, goodness, carnage. It would have been absolute. See, if Charlie and Callum had been allowed to be together on the ward, it would have been carnage.
Yeah.
It's probably a good thing they were in isolation. But no, Callum spent half of his life in treatment and going through everything, and you wouldn't know, you wouldn't know that this kid was really sick, and he had his quiet days and his days that he really didn't feel very well, but he had his days where he felt great, and he was just fun. He was just a fun kid, and always up for mischief.
I know that's why.
Yeah. Always up for mischief. And it was nice because he was, compared to Jackson, who's now 10, almost 11, two polar opposites. Jackson was a quiet child, and really polite and didn't really do anything wrong. And then there was Callum. And it just complete opposite. And yeah,
I know. Is that, I don't know if that's a first and second child thing or
yeah,
not.
I think it is a second child thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, for what he went through, to still wake up smiling and wanting to grab everything about life, then you know he was pretty amazing.
Yeah,
He was amazing.
Incredible, and they blow us away how they deal with all the different things, you know, the rods and everything.
Yeah.
Just everything. Is there like one memory that really stands out to you, like just one thing that you just think of and it's just the best moment that you guys?
Gosh, Kelly, there's so many. Oh goodness. There's so many. I think one thing that just actually popped, so I'll take what's just popped into my head, was we've got a video of him and he was really little. He was probably just over 3, I would say. And he'd been unhooked from his pole and his IV and stuff. And he's running around and Brad's like, "What are you doing?" And in his little beautiful baby voice, he's like, "I'm running around like a lunatic." And then he's just running around the room. But it was just that little cute voice, and he couldn't say lunatic properly. And it was just, that kind of sums up what he was like. You know, obviously he couldn't get out of his room, so he'd been given some freedom
as well. Yeah, it's cute for them, wasn't it? You know, they were online pretty much 24/7. So that freedom, they just take it.
Yeah. No, there's so many. It's actually Callum's birthday on Sunday. And you know, I could just see him. I mean, he would be 9 now, which is you know, a big difference to his last birthday that I had with him when he was 5. And you wonder what he would be like, but I still reckon he would come running through and jump on my bed and say, "Right, Mum, make me breakfast." And that was his thing every morning when he was home as well. You know, it's just oh gosh, there's so many. I've probably forgotten.
I know, and then
not forgotten, but you know,
that doesn't it?
Yeah, it's
that memory.
Yeah, there's a lot in there.
Yeah. So, this will get us onto the bit of tricky stuff. So, looking back, what were the first signs that something wasn't right with Callum?
Oh, that was easy. He was bruising like anything. You know, you touched him and a bruise would come up. And I was like, this is just not right. And I thought, well, maybe, but then they would kind of go away a little bit. So that was probably October, November 2018, 2019. 2018. October, November 2018. So they then progressively got worse, and beginning of January, Brad was actually over in Melbourne attending a funeral at the time, and I said, you know what, I need to take him to the doctor. It's just the bruises are hanging around a little bit longer than they should. And I took him to the GP. GP didn't even look at him. He didn't even touch him. He went, "Oh yeah, I can see that. You know, there's something going on. Don't think there's anything to be worried about. Let's just get a blood test to check." I was like, "Sure." You know, always good to check. And it's funny, leukemia never really crossed my mind at the time, but I think it probably did. You know, you always hope for the best. But I then brought him home from the GP, and a couple of hours later, so the appointment was in the morning, it was probably 3 hours later, get a call from the surgery going, "Oh, hi Pam, just wondering how Callum is." I'm like, "Yeah, he's fine. He's having a nap." "Right, well, we've had his blood test results and we need you to get into Perth Children's Hospital as soon as you can. They'll be waiting for you." Okay, why? And it was that moment of, oh shit, there's something wrong here. And actually, interestingly enough, sadly enough, one of my kids in my mum's group, she had just gone through was going through treatment for ALL. So I wasn't, leukemia wasn't foreign to me, but it never crossed my mind that another child around the corner might have leukemia. That was just not really on my radar. So, and I said, well, but he's having a sleep. Do I need to wake him up? And they said, yes, you need to go into the hospital now. So Brad's in Melbourne. I'm on my own. Brad's mum and dad were also in Melbourne at the same funeral, so really on my own. So I just think, oh dear. Let's just not panic and panic the children. And it's like, right, well, we've got to go in. And, so Callum was 2. Jackson was 4. Me trying not to panic. So I actually phoned my friend whose child had leukemia going, I've just received this phone call. Because they knew Callum as well and had seen the bruises themselves. And I said, what do I do here? What do I do? This is help.
So you kind of have that feeling that it was leukemia then?
No.
Or you just...
No, because he was so well.
Yeah.
He was not sick at all. And so then I get in and I phoned my sister-in-law. So she was on standby to come pick Jackson up if she needed to. And yeah, we got in there. They did another round of bloods and it wasn't leukemia. And it was well, the nurse's words, and these are ingrained in my soul. And she said, the doctor had come and seen us and checked him over. I mean, he was fine. And she came back and she said, don't worry, it's nothing dodgy. That was her words. And at the time, it was nothing dodgy. It was, he's going to grow out of this. He's just got really low platelets that if he, there were 2, I think he had 2 platelets. So as you know that,
wow.
Yeah, and they didn't, because he was well and showing no other symptoms, they didn't want to give him platelets. So that was it. Off we go with a diagnosis of ITP. Idiopathic thrombocytopenia
purpura. We've gone through all of these understanding about the platelets, numbers, things, and knowing that your child has 2. Now we know what that means. But then you'd be like, okay, if you say that's fine, that's fine. But we would be like, what would they do a transfusion under 10 or under 5?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
You're like, hold on, this my child will have internal bleeding.
Yeah. And it was Brad had I'd called Brad and said they found something in his blood. So he's frantically trying to get on a plane, like leaving a funeral of a young guy who had sadly passed away from cancer. And it was horrendous. So he had to sit in a flight for 4 hours then for me to say, actually, it was nothing dodgy. So that was, and then, so what proceeded from there was various follow-ups with the paediatrician at Perth Children's Hospital. Again, not really wanting to give him platelets or anything. And I've got this child who is we called him Callum Ball, because he just threw himself at life. Like, holy cow, what am I going to do here? It's just, this is awful. We were going camping. So that was the January. And then Easter time, we were going camping with the family. And we were like, should we go? Should we not go? What do we do here? The bruises aren't, still as bad, sort of thing. So they put him on steroids, which was not fun. Callum on steroids was, he went to his swimming lesson and he was like a little speedboat. He thought he could swim the length of the pool. He could not. Callum on steroids were just, next level.
Oh yeah.
And we went camping, and then it was one of those, like, we had been camping as well in the January. Was it January or Christmas? Yeah, so before we actually knew anything, and he had fallen and hit his head. So, I didn't even know he had really low platelets then, and that could have killed him. and just all these things.
Yeah.
And so then we went camping with family in Easter, and when we came back, I said there was just something really not right. Really not right. So that was April. And we took him back, and I said, there's something really wrong here. And it was funny because
from October through to April.
Yeah. So we had seen the doctor in January, and then so in the April things, I think he might have had bleeding in his stool or something, and I said, no, there's in your gut there's something more. And I remember it was a few weeks before, I was standing in my mother-in-law's kitchen just sobbing, going, I can't shake the feeling that there's something more here. And she was so lovely and was just like, trying to reassure me, going, no, that you need, to have to trust what the doctors are saying. I'm like, nah, there's something more. And so in the April, we had blood test, and they came back with blasts, leukemic blasts in his blood, but not enough to know what it was.
Yeah.
So on the 1st of May, we were told that it was definitely cancer, but they didn't know what type. And he was having biopsies every week to try and get them to figure out what type of leukemia it was, because they didn't know, it wasn't presenting. And it got to the point where he got quite sick. I mean, he was running around the ward when we were going in, and he was well. I'm like, we shouldn't be here. There's kids here that are really, really sick. I feel a bit like a fraud.
Yeah.
Because he's really well. He just got a lot of bruising. And so it was middle to end of May that after multiple conversations with the hematologists and doctors and specialists, everybody, they finally said it was AML. I think he had 7 biopsies in total to try and get a diagnosis. And we were in every single week. Yeah. It was
all coming back.
Yeah, it was a lot. So we got the proper diagnosis at the beginning of June, and then I think it was the 6th of June we started treatment. So that's he was quite unwell the week before we actually got the diagnosis, and they weren't really doing anything for him. Like, I mean, he's not, he hasn't eaten in days. Can we get him on fluids? But they didn't want to do anything that might jeopardize what treatment regime he might go through. And they were trying to reassure us, like, leukemia kids usually present like this, not running around the ward. And so it was difficult in that respect to see. But by the time we actually got the diagnosis, it was a relief, because we could start treatment. And it's like, well, there's a way out of this.
Yeah.
And, it's like, well, this is good, So unfortunately, the day that we started treatment, Brad had to fly up north for work that he couldn't get out of. So I was sitting in a room, one child at home being looked after and the other one in hospital. And just, it is a different universe. You kind of just go, what the heck has happened? It's such a surreal feeling, because you don't know what to expect, what to know, nothing. It's and that was it. That was the beginning.
Understanding. Sorry? It's really like a different language. And
yes, and I was talking to somebody yesterday about advocacy and self-advocacy and stuff like that, and it's how much you fight for your child. And wanting the best for them, because whilst the doctors know what they know, they don't know your child, and they don't know how they work, what they need, and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, they know their job, and they know their job really, really well. But over the 6 months of treatment that we had, where you have a real fight in your hands. And you're dealing with a lot. You're dealing with the new language of meds.
Exactly.
I just
Which now any of them, they're all gone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think of Callum asking for different things, and like asking for pain meds and stuff, and him knowing the name of
Charlie for a wee bolus.
A wee bolus.
Can I have a bolus?
Yeah. And it's just you step into an entirely different world. Thankfully for us, we were, in Perth and WA, and like I'm sure it is in all the other hospitals, and you have the support of the charities, and we had the kids cancer support group over here that came round with coffees and toys and stuff to keep the kids going and the parents going, and just lending an ear, which was amazing. And actually the dad of one of the who volunteers there, their son passed away from AML or AML, which was the same thing as what Callum had. So Callum's official diagnosis was acute megakaryoblast leukemia, and so a very rare strain of AML. I've actually only come across one child online who has survived. I haven't done any research recently, but that was at the time the only child I could find online that had survived, and they were in the States. And it's just, it's just mind blowing, absolutely mind blowing. But anyway, going back to the volunteer, his son had actually passed away from the same thing, and the way he told his story to me was so beautiful, in that it was never about him and what his son had gone through, and there was always giving me hope that Callum could survive, and I remember thinking, well, he has gone through the worst, so, and he's out volunteering and he's okay, so if the worst does happen, I might be okay too.
Yep.
And I remember vividly thinking that, because he's such a beautiful person, and it was that hope and that connection that you had with the community that get you through. And
it's the only thing that gets you through, isn't it? It's that hope.
Yeah. His wife brought me tea and bickies, and that, it's just those little things that help. And Callum's treatment was basically textbook. He had his treatment. His blood counts dropped and tanked, obviously being in isolation. That's why we couldn't get out. And then we had to wait till he recovers. And whilst he recovers, obviously you have the vomiting and the toxic stools and the other symptoms that crop up, and the skin rashes and all the abnormalities that come along with it. But all in all, his treatment was textbook. And it was just, we thought we were done, so that was the June 6th. And we got...
Just want to sort of go back a little bit. As a family, when Callum was diagnosed, how did you process that together? And how did you tell Jackson?
I can't remember. Callum was sick. He had, we had to spend a lot of time in hospital. My mum and dad came over from Scotland to help look after Jackson. He came into hospital a lot. Brad and I did 2 days on, 2 days off in the beginning. So Jackson was always being cared for. The poor kid did not know whether he was coming or going with everybody around, but he was surrounded by so much love that's what gets you through. And Brad and I were very similar in how we coped. It was like, right, game on. We've got to fix this kid. We've got to do what we need to do. And you go into survival mode.
Yeah.
And we text a lot, and we called each other and FaceTimed each other a lot. But I didn't see my husband really we were just passing ships.
Yeah.
It was, you do what you have to do.
Yeah, you do.
And you jump in 2 feet first.
time, isn't it? And then everything will be okay. You know, like it's just going to do it for this amount of time, and then lives will all go back to normal, and everything will be fine.
Everything will be fine.
That's the plan.
That is the plan. That is what we are doing. Let's not deviate from that, okay?
Yep.
And it was. We did it. It worked. I don't. It was. Oh, I don't want to say fine, but it was okay.
Yeah, and it's that short, fast treatment. You know, like it's such a quick treatment that know it's 6 months, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the others are so much longer that you're like, wow, they're like 6 months. That's all right. I can do 6 months.
Yeah. When I was initially told it was 6 months, and you had to stay. When I was initially told it was 6 months, because I didn't know what it was. Was it ALL? Was it AML?
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, it's basically sort of 6 months isolation." No, can't not. No, that's not possible.
Yeah.
And how am I going to contain this Energizer bunny in a room? And it was.
Did you guys get all in that 6 months? Did you get to go home at all?
Yes, we did. So we did 4 rounds of chemo, and I think our longest stint at home was about 3 weeks.
I don't think we got that.
Well, no, it wasn't, because it was on the edge of we would to start this again, but his counts weren't coming up fast enough.
Yeah.
And it was actually quite an anxious time, because you're really itching to get it, wanting to get it going again. So that was the second half of 2019. You know, we got out on the 23rd of December. And it was, I've got this video of Callum running out his room through an arch of all the nurses and stuff, and it was just amazing.
So the boys' treatment was really because Charlie was diagnosed 4th of July 2019, and he finished about the 20th of December as well. Yeah. So they were really in alignment with that first the first round, those cycles.
It was it's funny, because going back to that time, that was easy compared to the rest of the stuff.
Yeah,
that was easy in the grand scheme of things.
And it seemed so hard at the time.
Yes, and it was so hard at the time.
Major complications in that time? Other than waiting for the counts to come up on that for that round?
To be honest, I can't. I've got a diary. I've got stuff written down here, there, and everywhere, but I can't really remember. There was a few little things that we had to change treatment for, and he would spike temperatures and, the blood cultures and stuff like that. And but there was nothing really that stands out anymore. Probably a couple of years ago it might have been different if you'd asked me to have this conversation, but nothing really. We didn't end up in ICU or anything, or nothing really major. So then that was the first lot.
And then Callum's relapse. So this happened in
So this was an entirely different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
So we left the ward at the end of December.
Yeah.
And we went back in and for checkups, a couple of checkups, and everything was fine, okay. And we were told by our oncologist at the time, she said, off you go and live your life. You're no longer oncology parents. You're no longer an oncology family. Great. We rang the bell because he'd ended treatment. That was in January. And then in the February, he had relapsed. And it was, that was like being hit by a truck and being run over and reversed over and pulled through that hedge.
Yeah.
And stomped on, and that was far worse than the actual diagnosis.
Yeah.
Because we weren't prepared. We hadn't been prepared for it.
You're free. You're free. We've done it. We've done it. We can live our lives. It's like, what? Like, that's not meant to happen.
No.
So
Brad has actually got
40% relapse or something.
It was 60%, I think.
The numbers mean nothing.
Yeah, like Brad has got the statistics somewhere, but it was one of those, why didn't you tell us?
Yeah.
Why didn't you prepare us? And actually, this makes me feel like I've got a lump in my chest. Like, I vividly remember walking back onto the ward just like a week after we'd said bye to everybody. We were just coming back in for checkup sort of thing, and one of our favourite nurses just almost had to hold me up walking back to the room, and it was just devastating.
Yeah.
That this was happening again. Jackson was at school, he was starting pre-primary, and it was horrendous. And but there was always hope.
Yeah.
Like in our minds, we're like, well, if they didn't think there was going to be any hope, they wouldn't be trying. So they've got to give it a go. So the next step was bone marrow transplant, and but you had to do chemo before that to get him to transplant. So we had to do another couple of rounds of chemo, and to get him to transplant. And then we have COVID. Da, da, da.
I know.
So that added another bag of tricks to the whole thing. That was fun. So obviously we were isolated even more because all the services stopped. Our beautiful play therapist couldn't come in to play with Callum as much. Our OT at the time, she was amazing and made a point of coming and bringing stuff in for him and to keep us going. But obviously we couldn't be there together. Jackson couldn't be on the ward because of the restrictions. And then the transplant doctor got stuck overseas. Just to add, more fun to it all.
Just add more.
Yeah.
For those unaware, Perth do transplants over there.
Yeah, they do. And they've got an amazing transplant team now. But the transplant doctor at the time, she had a baby and gone overseas to be with her family and whatnot, and got stuck over there. That's what we were told. And so we had to head to Melbourne. So you've got a severely immunocompromised child having to go to a different city across the other side of the country in the middle of a pandemic.
To the state that's like locked down.
Yeah.
Above any other. Yeah. The worst state you could go to at that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Where you had to wear masks when you're outside walking. It was like it blows my mind that we actually did that.
I know. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
But
also we felt so protected inside those masks as well.
Yeah.
Like you'd walk your child through, I'm like, quick, tuck your head in. You can't don't get any germs from anyone. Or fly on a commercial airline with a child that is immunocompromised.
We were fortunate actually because we managed to get a Medivac flight.
Oh, good.
That's what we're called. And they flew us over, and my mum and dad flew over with Jackson a few days later, so we could actually be together as a family.
Yeah.
And we met. I am still extremely thankful that we went to Melbourne. What a fantastic hospital that is. The team over there were, next level. They were brilliant.
Yeah.
And but obviously all the restrictions around that as well, with what you can and can't do, and it was, yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And
Yep. Sorry.
treatment wise, they wanted to start him earlier because, unfortunately, the chemo that they had done previously hadn't gotten rid of all the blasts, so he was going into treatment with a few blasts, which is not ideal. But he did really well through transplant. A beautiful donor that had donated their cells to him, and again, it went well. It was hard. The strict chemo regime and the baths and the eye drops and stuff like that, and all the stuff that come along with that. But it went okay. And the cells took, and he was doing well, and it must have been it was the 9th of July he got his cells, and then we got out in the September, I think it was, and he'd been in isolation all that time. Thankfully, the transplant rooms are huge.
Yeah.
So
and bath.
Yeah, the massive bath. I may used a couple of times.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, but on the whole, it was okay. And unfortunately, he did develop a lung problem after all the chemo and all the treatment and things that we managed to stay on top of and get some help with. And it didn't go away completely, but it was better than what it was. But after my mum and dad left, I went back to Scotland. And we had to stay again until December in Melbourne. But we were actually, once he got discharged, we were actually a family again. And yes, we had to go in for appointments, and we had a couple of admissions after that in Melbourne, but we were a family, and it was the best time. Even it was almost like we could officially live in our little COVID bubble, and we didn't have to go out. We worked. It worked well, It worked well, and Jackson was entertained by my mum and dad, and we were able to get a tutor for him in Melbourne, because normally he would have been able to go to school, but he couldn't do that. Actually, it must have been, was it year 1? He was in. I can't remember, and it was. It was okay, and we were a family again, and we once the restrictions were easing ever so slightly, but we took them to the parks and stuff, and we just covered Callum in hand sanitizer and Jackson, and I've never been so clean in my entire life. But we had fun, and then we got back the beginning of December, and we had the best 5 months, I think it was, of our entire life. He was well. Our oncologist said if you didn't know he had leukemia before, you wouldn't know he had it now. His bone marrow was perfect.
Yeah.
And he was a normal kid. He was, he was just a normal kid. So it was, it was good until it wasn't.
Yes. So tell us about that.
It was, I can't remember dates exactly. Again, it must have been about April time. We just received.
You went camping again?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a beautiful camping trip. It was amazing down south, and we came back, and I put Callum to bed, and I saw a bruise on his foot, and my stomach went through a roller coaster ride, and I just went to Brad, and I said, we need to worry, because it was that type of bruise that you knew wasn't a normal bruise.
And when your eyes have been opened,
yeah,
all the things, yeah. Yeah.
So that was the April, and it was interesting because we'd gone back in. I had an appointment the next day with, I think it was the lung specialist, And we were waiting in the waiting room, and you know that feeling that you get when you're waiting for results, and you know that something's not right. And our oncologist happened to walk past, and I grabbed him, and Callum was being Callum and running around like a crazy kid. And I said, "Can we get bloods done?" He went, "Why? What's going on?" I said, I think there's something wrong. He's got a bruise on his foot. Can we get?" Because he was planning to get bloods the next day. I said, "Can we do them today?"
Yeah.
He said, "Pam, look at him. He'll be absolutely fine." And I said, "I know you're trying to reassure me, and I really appreciate that." I said, "Can we get them done today?" And he knew, he knew that we'd built up such a relationship with the team that they know the families, that when they say, "Can we get bloods done?" they're not doing it for the fun of it. You don't want your kid to have a blood test.
No.
And he was like, "Sure, I'll write them up. Not a problem." And so we had the lung appointment. Callum was still running around being Callum, and I got home, and Brad sort of cornered me in the kitchen. He went, "Callum's platelets are like 7." And I was like, what? And it was just that, you just know.
Yeah.
You just know. And it was interesting though, because about a month before that, his platelets had remained stable, and a month before that, he'd had a biopsy, and his platelets had dropped. And I was one of the young residents that was on, and again, I had that feeling. I'm like, his platelets have dropped, and she was like, "Oh, they're not in the abnormal range, and that's perfectly normal." I went, "No, no." I said, "Look, he's just had a biopsy. Let's check the results." And I think from then, I probably just had a gut feeling that there was something.
Yeah.
And then obviously this next blood test, it was confirmed, and back in for a biopsy, and he'd relapsed again. And this was different from the first relapse. This was right, what do we do? And our amazing team sat us down and said, "Look, you have 3 options. You do nothing and go and live what you've got left. We do the sledgehammer chemo, as they called it. So it was again going back into isolation and hitting him really hard with chemo.
Yeah, okay.
And potentially getting to a second transplant. And then the third one was a chemo regime, which was more of a trial. It had seen good results in AML kids, but it wasn't quite so strict as the sledgehammer chemo. And if that didn't work, you did have the opportunity to go to the sledgehammer chemo. But if you started with the sledgehammer, you couldn't go back.
Okay.
And so I think Brad and I were pretty realistic in what the outcome could potentially be at this point. This is not June 2019 when you're full of hope. It's only 6 months. This is a second relapse of a really aggressive cancer. This is we're at the pointy end now, and we in all good conscience put him through isolation again, but we couldn't do nothing because he was so well.
Yeah.
So whilst we've rationalised the treatment as he's well, he's fighting every day, we've got to give this a go. We can't just stop. And we had multiple discussions that it was definitely quality over quantity of life for Callum.
Yeah.
Anything less than that wouldn't have been fair on him. So we gave it a go, and he was doing okay until he wasn't. And it was I think the 23rd of May or 24th of May or something. We took him back into hospital for the last time. He developed a fever, and I'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so hard to relive that moment again.
Yeah, it was funny because Brad had his band playing out here and they were having a band practice, and it was afterwards he developed a fever, so I had to take him in, and it was he was angry at me because it was Dad's turn to take him in, and I was staying home with Jackson. You're always torn as a parent, like you want to do the best for your sick child, but you also want to do the best for your well child as well. And you're so conflicted all the time. So you've got a little person going, "Mom, I want you to take me," and you've got another one going, "No, Mom, I want you to stay here." How do you choose? And Dad was, yeah, it's heartbreaking, and I can still see Brad driving away with him. And Brad was so good. He's like, he is fine. He's just in a mood, and he's having to stop playing the drums. And and we got in there, and again he was well. When we would take him, and even though he'd spiked a fever, he was well. And then what progressed over the course of a couple of weeks was pneumonia, and we did another biopsy, and the leukemic blast has gone through the roof, so it was game over. And I don't like that analogy of game over. It's not a game. You're not fighting. There's no winners, there's no losers. It's just cancer.
Yeah.
There's survivors and there's not. There's no, you don't win at this, because that would imply that my child lost.
It's just a lottery. It really is a lottery. Yeah. You never know which is going to be.
Yeah. And it was
told, I guess.
We were told on the Tuesday evening the biopsy results, and he then passed away on the Saturday night. So it was. I'm grateful that it was not long and drawn out. It wasn't. He didn't. He was sick. He was very, very sick, but it wasn't months. It wasn't. It was quick in the end. It's so weird talking about this. It feels like it doesn't feel real.
No, it doesn't. And I think the longer that we go, the more it feels like a dream, and it wasn't a dream.
No.
But it definitely, it's such a strange feeling.
It is such a strange feeling that you had this little person in your life, who gave their all, and
and took it all on board and did absolutely
everything.
Yeah.
I mean, Callum fought with the doctors, and his favourite word was meanie. He called everybody a meanie, so much so that Brad's got it as his registration plate in his car now. Meanie in number 5, because Callum was 5 when he died. Yeah. So Callum started treatment on the 6th of June 2019, and he passed away on the 5th of June 2021. So 2 whole years of childhood cancer life.
Yeah. And how did go with all of it, through the treatment and after? Brother, like, how's Jackson doing?
That little kid, he amazes me.
Yeah.
Be the same as Harvey. You'll look at him someday and you think, geez, their little inner strength is just amazing. And it's...
We got from them, can't we?
Yeah. it's they have been through so much.
Yeah.
And it's I find it incredible how kids grieve so differently to parents.
Yeah.
And so differently. and he internalizes a lot. He doesn't know how to say how he is feeling, and I feel like I'm a blubbering snotty mess. Sorry. um, he can't verbalize it as what we can, and like in this, through some of his behaviors, you kind of question, is that grief, or is that just being, you know, at the time a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old or now an almost 11-year-old, and what's normal and what's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And yeah, he's seen a play therapist on and off who's been amazing for him, and he's really come into his own. It's took him, he lost his imagination for a long time after Callum died. And it took him a long time to try and find that again. And you know, I'm so grateful that there are iPads. In that we all, after Callum died, we all coped by just watching crap on our iPads and not connecting as a family and surviving. Yeah, and it's very much a survival. Like so Callum died over the long weekend in June, and on the Monday evening I said to Jackson, you know, what would you like to do? Do you want to go to school? Do you want to stay home? What, you know, it's up to you. You can do whatever you want. You can be here. He said, no, Mum, I want to go to school. So I want to be with his friends.
Yeah.
So Callum died on the Saturday, and somehow I got that child to school on the Tuesday morning. I don't know how. I don't know. I don't know if he had a lunchbox. I think he did. And that, we're so grateful again that, you know, his year 2 teacher used to actually be a pediatric oncology nurse.
Oh my goodness.
I know. She was amazing and worth her weight in gold with him. And we had a beautiful teacher's assistant as well. So she sat with him pretty much the whole day on the Tuesday, just making sure that he was okay. And it breaks my heart. The school told the community that Callum had died and stuff, and telling his wee class, and just the impact was huge.
Yeah.
Of not just us, but the school and things as well, and it was, just I don't quite know how I did it or survived.
Because Charlie died on the very first day of reception.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And didn't want to go to school that day. He wanted us, understandably. Like, right, so we'll go on the next day. So, like, we've just started at a new school this year. We've moved Harvey from his school because he was put back in the same room that he was in when last year. 60 kids, 2 teachers in one room. And it was really hard on him. Like, yes, the noise, but that trauma, again, this year. So, like, he's now at a brand new school. I've told the teacher that I'm sorry, he will never be at school on the 27th of January. I told the principal, actually, and she's like, we don't expect him to. It is okay.
Yeah.
If you miss the first day of school every year, it is okay.
Yeah.
We're really lucky because our school has fallen that we've not had to worry about that yet. But next year we it's tricky, but I don't know, I literally think we just zombied our way in there and just like dropped them off, and they were fine. And you get a moment to actually take on what's happened as well, to have that time to ourselves that day too, because I think it's so hard, isn't it, when you there's so much noise.
And so thankfully school was Jackson's safe place, and he had such a good connection with friends and teachers, and he's in year 6 this year, so new adventures for him next year. And
wow.
But as a school for him, it was just fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
We've been really fortunate with that. So
Yeah.
it's just, you never have kids to, you know, sit with them and feel their heart stop. It's, you never, it doesn't even cross your mind that
No,
that's a possibility. And
the baby.
yeah, and you look at these beautiful, perfect little beings, however, what shape or whatever they come into the world looking like, they're just perfect in their perfection. And it's, life changes. You know, people say that life changes in an instant. It really does. I think one of the worst things for me was having to phone my mum and dad in Scotland and telling them that he died. And, you know, just being so far away from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they had been such a huge support through everything they had been through with us. They had lived it with us. And then they were back in Scotland because of COVID, obviously, and stuff, again, that they couldn't get here because WA was locked down to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
And, you know, my sisters couldn't come to Callum's funeral and service. So everything was done from a distance, and that adds another layer of everything as well. You know, plus Brad's family are lovely, and all the rest of it, they're not my family. Well, they are my family, but they're not my family, and they're not my people. And it was, I missed my people through that time as well. You know, I think when we had Callum's service, I think one of the things that we wrote in the eulogy was, I just wanted to run away. I wanted to run away back to Scotland, pretend none of this was happening, hide in my mum and dad's front room, and everything's be fine. Didn't want to live there. Just wanted to go and stay and hide and feel that protection of, you know, and it's not having that was really, really challenging.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Really challenging. So it was, yeah, it's definitely a journey.
It is. So how do you, I find this the trickiest. So how do you manage the looks you get when you explain, or when someone asks you how many children you have and you have to give that answer? And have you found a better way of navigating this?
Oh, I pick and choose.
Yeah.
If it's the lovely girl that does, you know, my nails every so often, oh, how many kids you've got? Oh, I've got one. Because it's easier to explain. I haven't been asked that in a really long time, actually. I think initially, I think my general response is, I've got two, however, one's in heaven and he'll always be 5.
Yeah.
And that generally takes people go, you hear the gasp. And some people engage, and some people are really genuine, and some people ignore it completely.
Wow.
And that's fine. And then you get other people go, I'm really, really sorry.
Yeah.
And that's, you can't expect to people, it's so unfathomable to lose a child. It's goes against life's order, you know, and it's not supposed to happen that way. And I'm okay with the people that don't say anything, because I'd rather them not say something rather than say something stupid.
Yes.
You know, at least you've got another one.
God only gives you what you can handle.
What was that?
God only gives you what you can handle.
I know, yes. Oh, that little nugget.
I'm lucky. So lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, no, there's no at least. And it's funny, I was actually talking to somebody yesterday about this, and about every day is hard. You wake up in the morning, and whether it's a conscious thought or not, he dies every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not that I'm waking up sobbing my heart out every day, you know, that's not what this is about. It's just, it's there all
You
the
just
time.
missing, don't
Everything you do, everything
you?
you
Yeah.
do as a family, everything, you know, it's the, oh, you're frozen for a second. It took me a long time not to get 4 plates out the cupboard.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it took me, yeah, it takes you a lot to do things, and every day it's there. And people say, "Are you okay?" No, I'm not freaking okay, but I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I'm alive.
yeah. And in the grand scheme of things, I am okay. I've got so much to be thankful for. And I would have much preferred to know Callum and to have had Callum in my life than not.
Yeah.
You know, I'm grateful for so many things. You know, I'm grateful for Jackson thriving, and it sounds really cheesy, grateful, but I'm genuinely grateful, and I'm genuinely happy with things. Some things. We sadly had another journey after Callum, where Callum died in the June, and Brad's dad was diagnosed with lung cancer in the October, and he passed away last year in May. So again, that was grief upon grief, you know, and I actually feel this year, for the first time in a long time, that we can breathe again.
Yeah.
And we can take a breath without catching our breath. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, it's just, we can breathe again, and Brad can find out who he is without being a cancer dad and without being a cancer son.
Yeah.
And what it means for him, and how we move through the next stages of our life. What that looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So this year will be coming up to 4 years.
4 years in June. What was that?
Is it only 3 years in June?
4 years.
Oh, yeah.
4 years, yeah.
Oh, hold on. Thank you.
No.
Yeah, so coming up to 4 years in June.
Yeah.
So how has your grief evolved? And explain where you are now on your journey, what it has pushed you to do.
It changes all the time. Sometimes it gives me so much confidence to jump and try new things, and sometimes it makes me recoil and go, no, I just need to back up here. This isn't, you know, I really stupidly, gave myself 6 months of doing basically nothing after Callum died. I'll rewind a little bit. So when Callum died, and we were sitting in the room with him after he just passed away, and I consciously remember thinking, it's not about Callum anymore, it's about Jackson. And that was a vivid, conscious shift. Because he was my sole responsibility, and he had to be okay.
Yeah.
It didn't matter about me, but he had to be okay. And so I gave myself 6 months to really focus sort of on him, and making sure he got to school and did what he needed to do, and stuff like that. And then in the January, I said, right, okay, pull my socks up, need to go on with this. I started studying and I did a diploma of counselling, which was brilliant. Actually, I really enjoyed it. It was such a distraction, and it gave me, it was the distraction was what I needed, and it was working towards something, and my relationships changed with people over that time. I'm a naturally strong person anyway. I think of my gran when I say that, when your right arm had to be hanging off and your blood spurting out or whatever. Oh, you'll be fine. You're fine. That kind of thing. And whilst yes, I know that's not entirely healthy all the time, I think it's sort of inbuilt in me, and of I'll be okay. I'm just going to keep going. And yeah, so studying was brilliant. I met some really beautiful people on the course I did who are really good friends now. And it's funny because they know me post Callum, but they are so involved in my journey that they're almost pre Callum dying, as well. And it's really lovely to have their support. And I'm probably less tolerant of things, but yeah, just Brad and I are really focusing on us as just a family unit, because people forget what you've gone through. Their life goes on. That doesn't stop. Life does not stop.
No, and all of us differently as well.
Yes.
And it's not supporting, understanding, that grieve so differently to our husbands and our children's, our children, and actually being okay with that.
Yeah.
And coming back together as a family unit and working through it all together.
And I don't know if you found, but I certainly found that friendships changed as well. And which is sad in many respects, but also healthy, I think.
Yeah.
In that I'm, surrounded now by people who get it. And even if they don't get it, that's okay, because they give in a different way and I give to them differently, and it's, I'm content.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
I went back to work, which was interesting. And I actually work for a disability supports company, and the owner of the company, her son went through cancer treatment as well.
Okay.
So she gets it, and yeah, I don't want to be stuck. I'm constantly evolving, and if you, I think for anybody, even if you haven't been through, something like this, if you're not evolving, then what are you doing? It's keeping going, but it's a different keeping going.
Yeah, absolutely.
My priorities are very different now to they were before this. And you fundamentally change as a person.
Yeah.
It's almost feels like it changes your DNA in a way. It has such a profound effect on you.
Your outlook is different, isn't it? And on what's important and what's not. And if that you friendships along the way with that, but those friendships were really meaningful for those moments that you had them.
Yeah. Oh, very much so.
Wouldn't have got where you are without those, but
no. And there's a couple of friendships that one in particular I'm forever grateful for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I will truly be forever grateful for the support we got when Callum relapsed and passed away. But we seem to have gone in different directions as well,
Yeah.
and that's
It's part of it, isn't it?
it is part of life, and you know, she will forever be ingrained in my heart for her beautifulness at the time. And I will forever be grateful for that friendship.
Yeah.
It's just we've evolved and gone different ways, I think, and I've changed. Was it me that changed? Probably, but you know, but then she probably changed as well. I don't think there's a need to analyze it. It's just
No.
it just is.
Yeah.
And you know, now that it's surround people with you who don't judge you for who you are or
Yeah.
what it is, and you know, like we were camping in January, one of the best camping trips we had, and you hear camping's a theme with us, and
No, one we're gonna get our like family.
Yeah.
You guys, it's gonna happen.
Absolutely, but I was sitting at a brewery and it was a beautiful afternoon. Like it was evening time. The sun was just setting. The kids were having a ball. There was live music playing. The grass felt really soft under my feet, and it was just that summer evening. The smell as well. It just the next time, tears streaming, and I was like sitting at a table going, "Stop crying! Stop crying!" And it was just a Callum moment, you know. It was just you just wished he was there.
Yeah.
And it was like, and one of the mums walked past me, like, "Are you all right?" And I went, "Just a Callum moment." And she was like, "I know," and you know, and she just went and continued on and got drinks and whatever. But it was just I know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your people get it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And it was funny because her little boy, who's 5, who's also a firecracker, he's gorgeous, and he was like, "I don't really remember Callum." It's like, you know, you wouldn't. That's okay. But he was Jackson's brother. But yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful, isn't it?
So he's still talked about a lot, and all of that. It's just you know, family dynamics change. People, you know, like you say, people grieve so differently. Priorities for people change. And sometimes it's just too hard for other people.
Yeah.
It's just too hard.
Yeah.
I was going to say something and I forgot, and it was quite
it's just
what was that?
We don't have a choice, though, unfortunately.
No.
We don't get it to go, "Oh, that's too hard for me."
Yeah. And for me, it was I started volunteering with a charity called Ladybird Care Foundation. So they it's like a peer mentor program. So you're supporting other parents who have lost children just further behind you. A bit like what we're doing now. You're that peer connection.
Yeah.
And they're a beautifully run charity over in Queensland, and that makes me feel good that out of all of this shit, I can have a conversation with somebody and hopefully make them feel less alone. Because, you know, I spoke earlier about the childhood cancer community. It blows my mind that you can walk into a children's hospital one day and walk out the next without your child and there be nothing. You know, it's all these families that are affected by losing their child from various scenarios that don't have the charities there that to support them, and they're just left on their own. And my 2 mentees, their background's very, very different. They're not childhood cancer, but there's that connection of, you know, we've both lost children, so I get it. And it's, and yeah, that's where I come from now, you know, just, it can't all be for nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you were amazing setting up that Charlie's Rainbow. Jeez, I don't know how you did it. But look at what you've done.
Going, you know, this is coming into, it's our 4th challenge and coming into our 4th year. So I don't know. I even asked Professor Richard the other day, did you expect that we would still be here 4 years later, you know, and still fighting? And he was, you know, I guess someone comes in, you think, you know, this is just a moment that, you know, but it's just continued. And this is our biggest challenge than ever, you know, having over 60 challenges on the challenge this year. So it's huge and it's so exciting. But I don't know how I do it, but I do just know that, you know, obviously Charlie's beside me, helping me with that. But we do it for them because, as you say, it can't be for nothing. You know, we can't have lost them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I want to ask you all these questions now.
Yeah. It's not fair, is it?
What was that?
It's not very fair, is it?
I know. I'm talking all about me and my life and how I do it. And it's grief's an interesting one.
It is. It is.
What I've learned though is that I know when my body needs to rest, and I know that if I need to just go and lie in bed for a little while and do nothing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And not fight it. You know, because I find, well, for me anyway, if I fight it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I've had a couple of check-ins with my psychologist as well, every so often, just to, you know, see her and process what Brad was going through with his dad as well. And I've got some really amazing people in my life that support me along, whether I pay for it or not. You know, they just you being okay in that space and reaching out for getting help.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well.
So, lastly, what is your advice to other families going through their own cancer journey or grief journey?
Oh, advice.
Sorry.
Do what you have to do. And be firm in protecting what you need. And if that means not connecting with people for a while or whatever that looks like, that's okay. Obviously, if it's getting to 6 months, a bit more down the line, and you're still not connecting with people, then yes, maybe go and get some help. But just a little disclaimer there. But yeah, just do what you have to do. And it's okay to tell people no.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not okay, if I laugh at some of these reels and things on Facebook, and you know, it was like the extrovert of me made plans to go out in 2 weeks. Now the introvert doesn't want to go, sort of thing. That kind of scenario. You know, if you can't do something, that's okay. I found it really hard to socialize in the very beginning, or be with new people. That wasn't easy at all.
Because new people,
I couldn't do.
Explain yourself, don't you?
Yeah, I couldn't do small talk.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you're talking about utter shit. I really can't. I don't want to engage in this.
Or you're complaining about something that is literally like your kid didn't die.
Yes.
But everyone has something that they're going through, and you know, you do get in a moment where you're like, I don't have a tolerance for any of that stuff. But then work your way through it, and you're like, okay, everyone has something that's, you know.
Everyone, and again, it's that I'm really thankful that they actually don't know this.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
they don't know this
Yeah.
sheer agony.
Yeah.
Of what we've been through and what we go through every day, and it's I'm really thankful that they don't understand that. I wish that feeling was reciprocated at times, but then would I feel the same way if I hadn't gone through some of this? Possibly, you know, because you take life for granted.
You do. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think, you know, unless you make a conscious effort to not take life for granted, then, you know, it just is. It's just, yeah. I don't know if I know where that train of thought was. But don't take life for granted, okay? But if your child has died, then it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's the same with people who, you know, just be true to yourself and be true to what's important. And everybody's priorities are different as well,
Yeah.
you know. And
Yeah.
so I don't really have any advice, but just know that you're not on your own.
Yeah. And, you know, if your other half is not processing it the same way, just be patient.
Yes.
Patience is huge. Yeah.
Yep.
Because we all do it differently, and that's okay.
Very, very differently. I think what helped me has helped me the most is that see now, Kelly, you're gonna make me cry again.
I'm sorry.
I made a promise to Callum that I would continue living for him. You know, in our little chats before he died. And I don't get it right every day.
No.
You know? Probably not every week, but it's always there, and it's always a conscious thought. And my other conscious thought is being Jackson and making sure Jackson's okay.
Yep. That is the sole reason that we survive.
Yeah. And it's exactly. Just making sure he's okay.
They look different each day.
Yeah. And I think, you know, now that because we had the other complexity of Brad's dad and what he was going through, we never had time to really pause and figure out our life as a family. Because I went and, again, you know, it was making sure Brad was surviving as well as Jackson. So I was going this way with Jackson, and then Brad sort of went that way. And it's now, you know, trying to come back together again and finding and doing stuff that make us happy as a family.
Yeah.
You know,
find something to work on together.
Yeah. And so that was a really long roundabout way of saying, you know, I don't really have any advice.
It's a yeah, definitely learning every day, as we go. Yeah. Is there anything
and if something's not working, change it.
Yeah.
You know.
Is there anything else you'd like to share for today before we finish up?
Goodness me, Kelly, I don't know. It's funny though, you know, in between the laughs and there's tears and then there's the smiles and you know, I'm so grateful for you and Mike and, you know, and meeting you guys in Melbourne and
completely.
That
I'm
was
so grateful for you guys too.
And it's people like
catch up.
And it's funny because we don't, in the grand scheme of things, we don't really know each other that well. But I feel like you're a really good friend of mine. And it's I could pick up the phone for a chat and see how you were doing, and we don't do that often enough. But
no.
And it's just that connection, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I remember Mike saying to me at the time when everything was kind of hitting the fan, he said, "You know, this could be the cancer, right?" And it was that. I really appreciated him for saying that because whilst it was confronting, you've been there, you've done this. You know, obviously the hope very hopeful that it wasn't, but it was the,
Yeah.
It could be the cancer that's causing all of this.
Yeah.
And that knowledge is, the biggest gift you can give, in a sense, even though it's not really a gift, but it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know that it's hard to bring Callum's story back.
I've probably missed out half of it. Brad's probably sitting in the other room. You didn't say this. You didn't say this. You didn't say this.
Exactly. But it's like I think our bodies find a way of shutting a lot of that down, because I think if we remembered it all, how would we get up every day, and how would we still be here and surviving? So yes, there's so much that we have, probably missed, but
but it's true. Your body probably is protecting you from.
Exactly.
If you did wake up every single day remembering every smallest detail,
yeah,
you wouldn't survive.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Pam. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Sorry for the snotty mess.
Yeah. It's just been an honour to be able to ask you these questions, and you really, you and Brad are really special friends, and we want to get the boys together and they can actually. We've had our minds and our beers. We really appreciate your friendship, and you guys are a huge support for us in Melbourne, and we hope that we were there for you as well. So
absolutely.
Thank you, and well done everybody in the challenge. Let's keep going.
Yes, keep on
halfway
going
through. So brilliant. Thank you.
How much money have you raised so far? Do you know?
Last time I looked, it was 13,500.
Oh, amazing!
Yeah.
Well done.
Yesterday. So so it's amazing. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Well done.
Beautiful.
Well done. Alrighty, well, I'll let you go.
That's all right. Thank you so much.